The wind howled through the broken trees, carrying the cold smell of iron and ash. Far away from any city or signal, a small wooden cabin stood at the edge of a silent valley. Inside that cabin lived Ethan, a man who had not seen another human for almost 10 years. His hair had grown long, his beard rough, and his voice quiet from lack of use. He spoke only to himself and sometimes to the wind. Ethan was once a soldier in the Great Galactic War, a war that had burned planets and erased entire species when Earth fell. He escaped in a damaged shuttle and crashed on this forgotten planet. He had fixed, built, and repaired until the wreck became his home. Each morning he woke before sunrise, checked his sensors, hunted in the forest, and repaired broken machines from the old ship. His only friends were the sounds of the wind, the rustle of trees, and the soft hum of his power cells. He lived by strict rules, never using too much energy, never making too much noise. He believed he was the last human alive, and that belief hurt more than the cold nights sometimes when the stars were clear. He looked up and whispered, "If anyone can hear me, you are not forgotten." But only silence ever answered. One night everything changed. The sky above his cabin split open with a bright flash. His old radar began to beep, slow at first, then faster, a signal of incoming debris. Ethan ran outside, pulling on his old jacket. Snow crunching beneath his boots through the clouds. A streak of fire cut across the night sky, falling fast toward the mountains beyond his valley. He stood frozen, heart pounding. For the first time in years, he was not alone. The crash shook the ground, a deep echo rolling through the hills. He grabbed his old rifle and a small medkit, then started toward the smoke. The path was steep and covered in frost, the air sharp with the scent of burned metal. When he reached the crash site, he saw what looked like 3 silver pods half buried in the earth. Still glowing from heat, steam rose from cracks in their hulls, and faint cries echoed from inside. Ethan's soldier instincts returned, his hand steady as he pried open the first hatch. Inside lay a woman. No, not human. Her skin faintly blue and her eyes glowing gold. Her arm was bleeding, and she clutched something close to her chest. When he leaned closer, he saw a small child breathing weakly. The alien woman looked at him, terrified, and whispered in broken English, "Please, help us." Ethan hesitated only a moment before nodding. He opened the second pod, finding another woman and another child, both unconscious. The third pod held a mother holding twins, all shaking from cold. He could see the fear in their faces, the confusion in their eyes. He lifted the first woman gently, carrying her through the forest toward his cabin. Each step was heavy, but his heart felt something it hadn't felt in years: purpose. Back at his cabin, he lit the old heater, covered them with blankets, and cleaned their wounds. The children huddled together, silent and pale. The alien women watched him carefully, speaking softly in their own language. Ethan didn't understand their words, but he understood their fear. He brought them food, simple roots and cooked meat, and they ate slowly, as if tasting earth itself. When the storm outside grew stronger, the cabin lights flickered. Ethan sat by the fire, his rifle nearby, watching the newcomers sleep. Questions burned in his mind. Who were they? Why were they here, and how did they find this dead planet? He touched the side of one pod that he had dragged back from the crash, and saw strange symbols glowing faintly. His old translator struggled to read them, showing only broken words. Refuge. Pursued. Hide. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Pursued. That meant danger was coming. He looked at the alien mothers and their children sleeping near his fire. For a long time he had dreamed of another human face, a voice, anything alive. Now instead, fate had brought him something unexpected. 3 alien mothers. Alone, afraid and hunted, he leaned back in his chair, the firelight flickering over his scarred hands. "Looks like the universe isn't done with me yet," he muttered quietly. Outside, the storm howled louder, hiding the sound of distant engines in the sky. Something was coming through the clouds, scanning, searching, hunting. But inside that small cabin, for the first time in many years, Ethan didn't feel alone. He felt the old fire inside him awaken, the same courage that once made him a soldier of Earth. As he closed his eyes for a brief rest, one of the alien children stirred and reached out a tiny glowing hand. Touching his arm, a soft warmth spread through his skin. Calm and strange, he didn't know what it meant. But he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I'll find out who you are." And as the snow fell outside, The last human on the planet sat guarding the future, unaware that destiny had just knocked on his door. Morning came slowly, light filtering through the cracks of Ethan's old cabin. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, and the air was cold again. Ethan opened his eyes, his back aching from the wooden chair where he had fallen asleep. For a moment he wondered if last night had been a dream. Then he turned his head and saw them, 3 alien women still asleep near the fire. Their children curled up beside them like small stars. Their skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, almost like glass touched by moonlight. Ethan blinked, still trying to believe it was real. He hadn't spoken to anyone in years, yet now 6 strangers were under his roof. Breathing softly, he stood quietly, made breakfast, and placed bowls near them, unsure if they even ate the same food. When the first mother woke, her golden eyes watched him carefully. Her wounds were better now, though her clothes were torn and burned. She tried to speak, her voice weak. "You, human?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, last one, I think." The woman looked confused, then whispered, "Impossible," they said. "Your kind gone." Ethan only shrugged, his eyes distant. Maybe they just forgot to finish the job. Her name was Lyra, and the other 2 were Nira and Sova, their children, small, glowing, and strangely quiet, and sat together near the heater. They didn't cry, didn't laugh, they just watched everything like tiny guardians. Ethan noticed how their eyes changed color when they looked at him. Blue to silver, silver to gold. It was unsettling, but also strangely peaceful. Over the next few days they stayed. Ethan repaired the damaged pods as best he could. Using parts from his old ship, he asked few questions, but the mothers whispered at night when they thought he was asleep. He heard fragments, pursued, empire, children not safe. He knew enough from the war to recognize fear when he saw it. Whatever they were hiding from, it was powerful, and it was close. One evening, Lyra approached him while he sat outside sharpening a blade. "You saved us," she said softly. "Why?" Ethan paused, the wind tugging at his coat. He stared at the dark horizon and replied, "Because no one saved me." For a moment, neither spoke. Only the distant hum of wind across the valley. Then she said, "If they find us, they will kill you too." Ethan looked at her, calm and steady. "I've been dead for a long time, Lyra. This is the first time I've felt alive again." That night, as everyone slept, Ethan checked his scanners again. A small red dot flickered on the edge of the map. Movement. Something was scanning the planet's surface. Slow and precise. He frowned, his fingers tapping the old metal console. He knew the pattern, he had seen it before, a hunter drone. His chest tightened. The signal disappeared after a few seconds. But he knew what it meant. They had been found. He walked outside, looking at the quiet stars for years. Those stars had mocked him with silence, now they carried danger back to him. When he returned to the cabin, Lyra was awake, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She whispered, "They're coming, aren't they?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, they found you." Lyra's hands trembled as she held her sleeping child. "These children," she said, "they carry something precious. Something the Empire fears." Ethan frowned. "Weapons?" She shook her head. "No. Something greater. A power they cannot control, so they destroy it." Ethan looked at the sleeping faces of the children, soft and calm. "What kind of power?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, her voice almost breaking. Hope Ethan didn't understand. Not fully, but he didn't need to. He had seen wars started over fear, and fear always hunted what it couldn't control. He stood up and walked to his gun rack, dust covering the metal rifles of another age. He began checking power cells, tightening bolts, reloading clips. Lyra watched him silently, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "You're preparing to fight?" she asked. Ethan gave a faint grin. Old habits die hard. The next morning, he led them to a hidden entrance behind the cabin. Beneath the ground was a bunker, his old safe house filled with supplies, tools, and reinforced walls. He had built it long ago, when paranoia was his only company. Now it was their only chance. "You stay here until I clear the area," he told them. Lyra wanted to argue, but his eyes told her not to. He went back to the surface, his scanner blinking again, red light moving closer. The forest was too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before something terrible. Ethan crouched behind a fallen tree, rifle ready. Then he saw it, a drone gliding between the trees. Black metal and crimson lights. He aimed, held his breath, and fired. The shot split the air, the drone crashed into the snow, smoke rising from its body. But before it died, Ethan saw a flash on its side. A transmission beacon, they knew now. He ran back to the cabin. Heart pounding, Lyra met him at the door, her voice shaking. What happened? Lyra met him at the door, her voice shaking. What happened? They're coming, Ethan said. And they won't stop this time. The alien children stirred, their glowing eyes wide with fear. Ethan placed a hand on the wall, thinking fast. He had weapons, traps, old codes, and he would need them all. He looked at Lyra and said quietly, "Then we fight, outside above the clouds." Engines roared in the distance. The hunters had found their prey. But they didn't know that the last human on this dead world was waiting for them. And this time he wasn't running. The forest was silent, too silent. Even the wind had stopped moving through the broken trees. Ethan stood outside his cabin, scanning the horizon with his old visor. The red dots were multiplying, hundreds of small signals approaching from the upper atmosphere. They were here. He turned off the scanner and took a slow breath. The kind soldiers took before a fight they might not survive. For years he had dreamed of hearing another voice, of meeting life again. Now the universe had answered, but not with peace, and it had sent war to his doorstep down in the bunker. Lyra and the other mothers gathered their children. The air was thick with fear, yet the children did not cry. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, reflecting the lights of strange patterns, almost like ancient runes. Lyra looked at them and whispered, "Stay calm, little ones. Stay hidden." Her voice trembled, but she forced a smile. Ethan moved quickly through his cabin, checking traps, adjusting sensors, loading weapons he had sworn never to use again. Old plasma rifles, mechanical mines, drones powered by leftover energy cores. The sound of gears and static filled the cabin, like ghosts of the past waking up. He looked at an old photograph, faded and torn, of his squad from the war. They had died fighting for Earth, and now he would fight for something else. Once a soldier, he muttered. Always a soldier. Outside the sky flashed red, a gunship breaking through the clouds. Its engines roared, sending ripples through the valley. It hovered low, scanning, its light slicing through the trees. Ethan crouched behind cover, rifle steady, pulse calm. When the beam passed over his cabin, he fired. One precise shot. The bullet hit the drone pod on its underbelly, exploding in a burst of fire. The ship tilted, sparks bursting from its side before it crashed into the trees with a thunderous roar. He didn't wait, he moved, fast and silent, setting off his first trap. Explosions ripped through the forest, smoke and dirt rising high. More drones poured out from the clouds, mechanical wings unfolding. Eyes glowing red, Ethan fought like a ghost, disappearing between the trees. Firing, moving, never staying in one place. For every drone that fell, two more came, but he was faster, smarter. This was his land now, his battlefield. Lyra watched the battle through the small screen in the bunker, her eyes wide. Each flash of light above meant another explosion. Another fight. She held her child close, whispering, "He's fighting for us." Nira closed her eyes and said softly, "No, he's fighting because he remembers what it means to protect." Hours passed like minutes. Ethan's arms ached, his breathing rough. The forest around him glowing from fire and energy blasts. He was covered in ash, blood, and sweat. He ducked behind a fallen ship wing, reloading from above. He saw more ships descending, larger, faster. He pressed the side of his helmet, opening his old frequency link. Static filled his ear. Then a cold metallic voice said, "Unregistered life form detected, human origin. Terminate on sight." He smiled faintly. "Come and try." He activated the last defense, an old orbital cannon buried beneath his valley. It was a relic from the war. Half broken but still functional, he powered it on, the ground trembling as its ancient circuits woke. From the sky a blinding beam shot upward, striking the incoming fleet. The first ship exploded. Fire raining down like stars, Ethan fell to his knees, shielding his face from the shockwave. The forest burned brighter than the sun for a moment. When the smoke cleared, silence returned. But he knew it wasn't over. A shadow moved through the fire. Tall, armored, glowing with cold blue light, a figure stepped forward from the wreckage. It wasn't a machine, not fully. It was a half-living hunter, built for war. Its eyes locked onto Ethan, and its voice hissed, "Human. Anomaly." Ethan gripped his rifle tighter. "Yeah, that's me." They clashed in the ashes of the forest. The creature moved fast, blades flashing. Ethan blocked with his rifle, sparks flying, then swung his knife upward. The blade cut through wires and armor, but not deep enough. The hunter struck back, sending him crashing into a tree. Pain ripped through his body, but he pushed up again, blood dripping from his lip. He grabbed a grenade from his belt and smiled. "Say hello to Earth's welcome." He threw it straight into the hunter's chest. The explosion lit the night, tearing the creature apart in a burst of blue fire. When it was over, Ethan stood shaking, breathing hard. The forest was burning, smoke filling the sky. He looked up and saw only one small drone escaping into the clouds. His heart sank. They would send more. This was only the first wave. He limped back to the cabin. Exhausted, armor cracked. Face covered in soot, Lyra met him at the door, eyes full of tears and light. "You fought them," she whispered. "Alone," Ethan gave a weak smile. "Didn't have much of a choice." Her hand trembled as she touched his shoulder. "You saved us. They will come again." He nodded, looking toward the black sky. "Then we'll be ready." Down below, the children stirred. Their eyes glowing brighter than before, they felt something, a pulse, a warmth, spreading through the air. Lyra noticed it too, her voice soft with awe. "They are awakening," Ethan frowned. "Awakening to what?" Lyra looked at him, fear and hope mixing in her golden eyes. "To what they were born to become." Outside, lightning cracked across the burning sky, and far above the clouds, a fleet of warships turned toward the planet. Preparing their next strike, the battle had just begun, and the last human alive was about to learn that the children he had saved carried something powerful enough to change the fate of the galaxy. The forest was gone. What once had been a home of quiet trees and silver mist was now a wasteland of smoke and ash. Ethan stood near the cabin, breathing through a cracked mask, watching the sky still burn with the fading glow of destroyed ships. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he had done. He had fought again. After years of silence, and he had won. But the victory felt hollow because he knew the enemy would return. Behind him, the old cabin door creaked open. Lyra stepped out, her skin faintly glowing under the dim light. She carried her child in her arms, wrapped in a gray blanket. The other mothers followed, each holding their own, their faces a mix of fear and disbelief. "You should rest," Lyra said softly. "You are hurt." Ethan wiped blood from his cheek, shaking his head. "No time. They'll come back with more." Before he could say another word, a small sound broke the tension, a hum, low and steady. The children, who had been silent since the crash, were standing together, eyes glowing brighter than before. Their hands were linked, their small forms surrounded by faint golden light. Ethan froze, feeling the hair on his arms rise. The air around them began to shift, the burned soil beneath their feet turning green. Tiny plants sprouted where moments ago only ash had lain. Lyra's eyes widened. "It's starting," she whispered. Almost afraid, Ethan stared in disbelief. "What's happening to them?" Lyra knelt near the children, her voice trembling. "They are remembering who they are." She looked up at him, her golden eyes filled with awe. "They are the last starseeds, the children born from the core of life itself." Ethan blinked, trying to understand. "Core of what?" "The ancient power that built worlds," Lyra said quietly. "The same power your ancestors once touched before the fall of Earth." Her words hit him like thunder. He had heard old stories, myths told among soldiers, about a cosmic energy that could rebuild planets, reshape life, and heal the broken. He had dismissed them as legend, but now, that power was standing before him, glowing in the eyes of 6 children who weren't even human. Nira stepped closer, fear on her face. "The Empire hunts us because they want that power. They want to twist it, to build weapons from what was made for life." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So that's why they destroyed your home?" Lyra nodded slowly. "And why they will destroy this one if we stay?" Ethan turned away, staring at the smoke curling through the valley. He had spent years surviving and hiding from ghosts, living only for himself, but now for the first time, something bigger than survival had found him. He looked back at the children, their light flickering like small suns. "What do they need?" he asked. "To stay alive?" Lyra's voice shook. "A safe place, until their awakening is complete. Then they can restore life to the worlds that war has destroyed." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "And where do I find a safe place in this galaxy?" Lyra lowered her head, silent. He sighed. Then we make one. He spent the next day preparing. The forest floor became a field of traps again, trip mines, motion sensors, EMP grenades inside the bunker. He repaired the old shield generator. Connecting it to the cabin's fusion core, the mothers helped, their strange technology fusing with his. When night came, the valley shimmered under an invisible dome of light, a temporary sanctuary. But even as they worked, Ethan noticed something strange. Every time one of the children touched the earth, the air grew warmer, the soil richer, the plants greener. It was as if life itself followed them at one point. The youngest girl, Lyra's daughter, reached out to Ethan and pressed her hand to his. In that instant, his mind exploded with light. He saw visions, Earth before the war, oceans blue, forests alive, cities shining under the stars. Then he saw the destruction, fire raining down, people screaming, the sky turning black, and then a single light rising from the ashes. Humanity's will to survive. Ethan fell to his knees. Gasping, Lyra rushed to him. "What did you see?" He looked at her, eyes wide with shock. "Everything. I saw everything," Lyra nodded slowly. "She showed you the truth. The starseed doesn't just rebuild worlds. It remembers them." Ethan's heart pounded. All those years alone thinking Earth was gone forever. Thinking humanity had been erased, now he realized. Maybe the memory of Earth still lived inside this strange power. Maybe, through these children, there was still a chance to bring it back. He stood slowly, determination burning in his eyes. "Then I'll protect them," he said, "no matter what comes." Lyra stared at him. "You would die for a people not your own?" Ethan smiled faintly. "They're alive, aren't they? That's all that matters, far above, beyond the planet's orbit." The Empire's warships gathered again inside one of them. A commander stared at the transmission feed from the lost drones. "Confirm visual," the commander said coldly. "Human signature detected, possible protector. Eliminate all." Dozens of ships turned toward the small planet, their weapons charging back on the surface. Ethan watched the stars through the smoke. He felt the ground tremble faintly, and he knew the next storm was coming. But this time he was ready. He looked down at the children, their light pulsing like living suns, and for the first time in years, he whispered, not in despair but in faith. "If the universe wants to take them," he said quietly, "it'll have to go through me first." The wind rose, carrying sparks through the air. Lyra stood beside him, her voice soft but fierce.
"You are only one man." Ethan's gaze never left the sky.
"One man's enough." Above them, the first wave of ships broke through the clouds, and the night lit up once more, not with fear but with fire. The night sky burned again. Lines of red light cut across the clouds as the Empire's fleet descended through the atmosphere. Ethan stood on the hill above his cabin, the wind tearing at his coat, his eyes fixed on the falling ships. They looked like meteors, silent death streaking through the darkness. Behind him, the valley glowed faintly beneath the dome he had built, the last safe light on this forgotten planet. He pressed his comlink, his voice steady. "Lyra, how much time do you need?" Down below, her voice crackled through the static. "The children are almost ready. The awakening is close. Hold them off as long as you can." Ethan smiled faintly. "I can do that." He checked his weapons, 2 plasma rifles, an energy shield on his wrist, and a handful of grenades strapped to his belt. Old gear, repaired too many times but still good enough to kill. He took one last look at the photograph inside his jacket, his old squad smiling before the war. "You'd laugh if you saw me now," he whispered. "A broken soldier fighting for alien kids." Then he tucked the photo away and walked toward the storm. The first wave hit fast. Drones poured from the clouds, red eyes scanning, guns glowing. Ethan fired from the ridge, every shot clean and sharp. One by one, the machines fell, crashing into the burning trees. He moved like he was back on the battlefield. Efficient, fearless, alive. Explosions painted the night, smoke rising in pillars that touched the stars. Below the surface, the bunker trembled. Lyra and the other mothers stood around the children, who were now surrounded by swirling rings of light. The air pulsed with a rhythm, like the heartbeat of a planet. The children's voices blended into a hum that filled the cavern with warmth and power. Nira whispered, "They are merging with the seed." Sova nodded, tears in her eyes. "They are becoming what they were meant to be." Outside, Ethan's world was chaos. He had lost count of how many ships he'd shot down, how many drones he'd destroyed. But for every one that fell, another appeared. A plasma blast struck near him, throwing him against the rocks. His armor cracked and smoking. He groaned, pushed himself up, blood running down his face. He could feel the shield generator weakening, its hum flickering like a dying heartbeat. He pressed his comm link again. "Lyra, it's breaking. You need to hurry." Her reply came in a whisper. "Just a little longer, please." He laughed softly, a rough sound. "You always say that." Then he pulled himself up, loading the last power cell into his rifle. From the flames ahead, a shape appeared, massive, armored, glowing with cruel blue light. The Empire's commander, half machine, half creature, towering over the battlefield. It looked at Ethan and spoke through a metallic growl. "You are human." Ethan wiped the blood from his mouth. "Used to be?" The creature's voice turned cold. "Your kind is extinct." Ethan raised his rifle. "Guess someone forgot to tell me," they charged. The impact shook the ground, light and metal colliding. Ethan fought with everything he had, blade, rifle, fists, and fire. The commander's blows tore through his armor. Each hit like thunder, but Ethan never stopped moving. Never stopped fighting, even as his lungs burned and his body screamed. He kept going. He grabbed a fallen drone, ripped out its power core, and jammed it into the commander's chest. The explosion threw them both apart. Ethan hit the ground hard, the sky spinning above him. The commander staggered, half its armor melted. Sparks bursting from its chest, it looked down at him, voice broken. "You cannot stop the Empire," Ethan coughed, smiling weakly. "Wasn't trying to." He looked toward the valley where the ground now shone with blinding light. The bunker was opening, the children rising into the air, surrounded by golden energy. Their glow spread across the valley like dawn breaking after endless night. The commander turned, roaring, but it was too late. The starseed had awakened. The light erupted outward, washing over the burning forest. The wrecked ships, the corpses of machines. Where the light touched, life returned. Grass grew through ash. Trees rose from ruin. The sky turned blue again. Ethan shielded his eyes, feeling warmth fill his chest. The pain faded, replaced by peace. He could see Earth again in his mind, where green fields, blue oceans, the sound of laughter. Lyra's voice echoed faintly. "Ethan, it's done. You did it," he smiled. The weight of years lifting at last. "Good," he whispered. "That's good." The commander's body turned to dust under the light, its metal armor melting into the soil. And Ethan, the last human mine, fell to his knees, smiling as the light surrounded him. His heartbeat slowed, his body fading into the glow. Above him, the children's light formed a shape, a bright star that rose into the sky, carrying his memory with it. When the light faded, the war was over. The forest was alive again, rivers flowing, flowers blooming where fire once burned. Lyra stood with her child, tears on her face, looking up at the sky. A new sun had appeared, shining brighter than any before. She whispered softly, "He saved us. And now he lives among the stars. And far above, where no empire could reach, a small light burned eternal. The last spark of a human heart that refused to die. The legend of Ethan, the man who fought alone for life itself, spread across galaxies, and wherever the starseed brought life again, people would look to the sky and remember the human who stood against extinction. The last soldier of Earth, the guardian of hope,